Here.
Committee Member Foldenauer?
Here.
Committee Member Gator?
Yeah.
Committee Member Murray? Don't see. Committee Member McMillan?
Here.
Good. Committee Member Ruddock? Not here. Committee Member Etherton, I believe she will be in soon. Oh yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Hi, just Sherry, I'm noticing that Adrian Etherton, Jennifer Chong, and Steve Reddick, and
Oh, they're waiting.
they're all in the attendees area.
Ah, there you
Okay,
go.
so I got to move them to.
You got to move them, and I can't do it. I would if I could. Okay.
I was having trouble with my laptop earlier, so let me go to panelists, attendees. Okay, let me move you guys over.
Cool.
Adrian Moore.
I kept seeing them pop up, but it didn't even dawn on me what was going on. I was the host of a meeting earlier today, and I couldn't figure out how to be the host. It's been so long since I actually hosted a meeting that I had to invite myself as the host in.
Thank you, Jill.
Are you going to show us to the baby?
I can if that's appropriate.
Oh, we have to see the baby.
If
Come
my
on,
husband
Laura.
can bring him in.
Oh, we have to see the baby. Come on.
All right, just a second.
Even I like a baby occasionally, especially when there's someone else's now, right? I'm reaching that grandparent age where it's like, yeah, they're great if there's somebody else's.
You're going to lose the baby vote, John.
I'm not running for anything. I couldn't run for dog catcher.
You'd be a great dog catcher.
I actually might have to move somewhere that they have an elected dog catcher. I kind of like that idea.
Good.
Okay, so we
Nice to see you. Thanks
Sherry,
for
do you
joining us.
see Michelle?
do not see Michelle.
She's in attendees. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, bring her over.
Okay.
Boy, we
Don't
got a
you-
full
do you-
screen here.
Do you have to bring the TV over?
I'll bring her over to. Oh.
When we have planning commission, we have to bring them over. So I'm just asking.
Oh, there we go.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, boy.
This is Kai.
Cute.
Oh.
He's getting very used to seeing people over screens. Who knows what he actually thinks about that?
Well, I'm afraid what he might think about it.
Oh my gosh, so cute.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad he was able to join us. Congratulations. I don't think I know I haven't been at a formal meeting to say that publicly, and so I know I joined with the rest of the crew around here.
Definitely.
Thanks for sharing. That was the best share.
It was good.
Can't beat that one.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. I'll turn this over to the chair, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thank you, John. And Sherry, just want to make sure that we finish the roll call.
Thank you. Okay, so Michelle. Oh, where'd she go?
Here.
Thank you. Oh, she was muted. Who else do we have that? Committee Member Ruddock?
I'm here. Thank you.
Great.
And who else? Oh, Committee Member, Vice Chair Etherton.
I heard it.
Okay. We're good.
Great. Well, thank you. And good to see everyone. I know it's been a few months since we all last gathered, and we've got a pretty full agenda tonight. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review it. Basically calling for any changes or any questions on the agenda before we move forward. All right. Seeing none, then we move over to item number 2.
Nope.
So this is
the meeting minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm jumping ahead. So we reviewed the agenda. Sorry. Included with the agenda were the minutes from our last meeting. Any changes or edits that need to be made?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none. I think we just acknowledge that the minutes reflect the accuracy of the last minute of the last meeting. And do we raise hands that we're all in agreement?
Yep.
Great. Any abstention? Great.
Unanimous, okay.
Minutes are adopted. So sorry about that. Thanks for calling me, John, on that. So now moving on to item number 2. Any members of the public that wish to speak on items not on tonight's agenda?
Is there anybody in the public? Okay,
I don't have anybody. I just have Jason from PCT. So he's broadcasting for us.
all right.
Okay, then.
So I guess that would be a no on public forum items.
Okay, then we move on to item 3, the heart of our agenda. And so the first part is an informational presentation by, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher the name, Sandhya Ladha of the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. Anywhere close? Did I catch that?
Yeah, I think that is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen.
I would just say we're very pleased to have her with us, and we're, I think part of our issues and trying to challenges is to try to look beyond sometimes what we're doing here in Half Moon Bay and keep track of what's going on. I think that Sherry sent you a link to a couple of public forums that are being held by the county on the overall countywide bike ped master plan. And I don't know if you're going to touch on that, but those are the 9th and the 10th next week. So again, we're going to have staff monitoring that, but all of you are welcome to participate and look at that and kind of look at bike pedestrian issues on a broader scale than just this version of it. So thank you.
Thanks, John, and thank you, everyone. So happy Thursday to all of you, and hope you're all having a wonderful week so far. As John said, I will be touching not much on the CCAC bike ped plan and the unincorporated county plan that is going on right now, but those are our initiatives. And I could speak about that a little more when I come to that topic. But yes, I'm here to talk generally about an overview of what we do and how we can be more closely involved in your work around bike ped projects. So to introduce myself again, my name is Sandhya Ladha, and I'm the San Mateo County Advocate at Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. Thanks to the Half Moon BPAC and thanks to the staff for giving this opportunity to talk about SVBC's efforts and initiatives around biking. Feel free to ask any questions at any point of time. Feel free to interrupt. I may not be able to monitor the chat box, so you can just interrupt and ask questions. So here's what we're going to cover today. I'll start with talking about SVBC. What are our current initiatives in San Mateo County? We also have undertaken 2 recent initiatives about the network priority tool and polling data. So I'll touch base on those. Then in the end, I'll talk about a few upcoming events and finally talk about how we can help. And then you can let me know your thoughts. So as most of you might already know, Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition is a member-based nonprofit organization, and we work in both counties, San Mateo and Santa Clara, from Daly City to Gilroy. Our mission is to create a healthy community, environment, and economy through bicycling for people who live, work, and play in both these counties. We cautiously try to imbibe diversity, equity, and inclusion in all our work. We have an internal DEI committee and an external DEI committee to monitor our work and guide us around how we can be more equitable and inclusive in different capacities. I wouldn't say we have reached our goals 100% or we are exclusively DEI free, but we are still learning and growing as we progress. So how we do what we do? For achieving our mission, we have 2 general branches of work. 1, places, where our advocacy team works to make our roads safer and more inviting for people who want to bike. And second is people, where our programs and events team encourages that behavior through education, support, and fun. I am on the advocacy team, and I'm going to talk about how the advocacy side of things at SVBC. So we have different ways of considering positions and taking action. For many day-to-day decisions, as well as the important task of relationship building, our advocacy staffers are appropriate players. Then, as you can see, we just have 3 advocacy staff and we have 35 towns and cities to cover in both the areas. So for local issues, we have local teams. They focus on advocating for what projects the city should work on, what policies the city should vote on, and so far in local areas. And finally, for regional issues or positions that affect our organization or our work as a whole, we turn to our policy advisory committee. This group consists of members of our board of directors as well as representatives from each of the local teams. Here are some of our advocacy initiatives, and most of our campaigns are based around these initiatives. So there is Safe Streets for All, or Vision Zero, where our goal is to achieve 0 fatalities due to road injuries. Low stress bicycle networks, or complete street networks that are open for all people of all ages and abilities. Bikes plus transit. So we try to work closely with Caltrain, with Samtrans, with VTA, because we want to encourage biking for first and last mile connectivity where there is long distance commute. Then planning for new mobility. So new mobility consists of all the several devices that are there right now that include scooters, segways, and not just that, but also encouraging bike share in various cities and jurisdictions. Encouraging biking in general, trying to make it a habit which can be used for day-to-day use. Then green transportation and livable communities. Here are some of our advocacy initiatives which are going on right now in San Mateo County. So first and foremost is to expand local teams. This has been our goal, or our top priority goal since last year. We have 7 local teams in both the counties so far, but we are falling really short in terms of local teams in San Mateo County. We have 1 existing San Mateo Peninsula local team, and we have 3 more teams coming up in this near future. That includes North SMC, Redwood City, and East Palo Alto. And hopefully soon we can also have a local team in Half Moon Bay where we can work on local advocacy issues and involve grassroots people and work more around making biking safer in the area. Next, we work on infrastructure rides. So infrastructure rides are nothing but on-bike peer-to-peer rides with decision makers. So these rides are not public, but are targeted towards elected officials, city staff, BPAC members like you all, so that all of these people can come together, ride their bikes, and experience the journey in person. And then they can discuss various proposed projects. They can discuss or ride through some completed projects, or they can discuss some challenging areas. And we try to invite people of different cities together so that there is peer-to-peer learning among sister cities. And then you can share your solutions that you might have recently accomplished or try to discuss problems for challenging situations. Then we try to conduct advocacy trainings. This is for people who want to get involved in the bike movement, more like a beginner stage where people want to know how do bike projects work, whom to contact when any issue arises, where do you find information about the city's BPAC, what exactly is a BPAC, and so on. So all these things we could cover in our advocacy trainings. Then finally, these are our current projects or campaigns that we are involved in. So there's the Dumbarton Corridor Project. Then there are community-based transportation plans, which are going on in Daly City and East Palo Alto. Then there is the Unincorporated County Active Transportation Plan and the CCAG Bike Ped Plan. So we are on the stakeholder committee for both these plans and try to work closely with the county so that we can give them input time to time and help also spread the word around these plans to the community so that they can provide suitable input. And finally, we are also trying to work closely with cities to ensure that they have to encourage that they also bring about slow streets in their cities. This was about advocacy, but we also do have a lot of programs in San Mateo County. We have Safe Routes to School work with, so we work closely with San Mateo County Office of Education for Safe Routes to School work. Then there are bike rodeos that we conduct. There's education on bike ped safety. There are family biking workshops. This has been largely disturbed given COVID-19, but we've tried to move to a virtual era. So during shelter in place, we have conducted online family bike workshops. We have conducted on-site socially distanced bike rodeos, and we've also conducted virtual biking 101 and Bay Wheels classes. So here was just an overview about what is SVBC, what are our advocacy initiatives. Do any of you have any questions so far? Okay. So let me now take you through some other initiatives we have recently undertaken. So before we get into details of what this network priority tool is, I do have a few questions. So what do you all think should be top criteria while prioritizing bike projects in your city?
Are you asking us?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I think for what I see as a real priority at this point is that our coastal path, our beach coastal path is in terrible, terrible shape. It's just gotten so bad. It's scary for me to ride my bicycle on it. Okay. There are just so many breaks, bumps, fissures. I mean, it's just really bad. And then of course it was never wide enough to begin with. So, but that's a whole other thing. But it really needs to be completely redone. Mm-hmm. And it would be great. I don't know if your organization can help in bringing together all the entities that would be involved, because it's not just Half Moon Bay. Most of it is California state that has jurisdiction over most of the coastal path, and we have sections that are a county and also Half Moon Bay, and so it would take a major effort, but I think it needs to be made for so many reasons, not the least of which is simply safety.
Okay, thank you for that. Oh, anyone else? What do you think are the top criteria we should have while prioritizing bike projects?
I think that's really good to concentrate on bike routes that actually exist already, like the Coastal Trail, and make them better and more safe. However, my priority is I like to look at the bigger picture. I really would love to see our city be a model for bike and pedestrian accessibility for all citizens to the major points of social interaction, or stores and schools and places within the city that people have to travel. Mm-hmm. I'd like to move towards a car-free town. I mean, that would be I'd love that. Now, who knows if that's realistic at all, but I think that's the direction we should be going as a society, period. And so why not do what we can with that in mind?
Right, yes.
Yeah.
I don't own a car, so I second that. Thanks.
Great.
And I also, my main mode of transportation is on the Coastal Trail. Mm-hmm. And it's a multi-jurisdictional trail between state parks, the county, and Half Moon Bay. Mm-hmm. So it's only going to take an organization like yours to make it happen. Silicon Valley. So that's San Mateo County, Santa Clara County, and we serve you guys for entertainment and recreation. If you did a poll amongst all of your members of how often they came over here to use either Highway 1 and or the Coastal Trail, and I'd like to see a number. I'd like to follow up, like the BPAC to follow up on a number. I'd like to see a poll, see exactly how many people with all of the people that you have in your membership are using the Coastal Trail. And my theory is that we may be, 3% of San Mateo County population, if you include Half Moon Bay and Midcoast. We serve the other 97% of San Mateo County because they come here. And if we want them to recreate and enjoy themselves and be safe, we've got to do something about that coastal trail. There's no plan, none, not even City of Half Moon Bay has a plan, but it's not necessarily, an asphalt, but it's only Half Moon Bay. It's from Poplar to Kelly, and that's half a mile of a 7-mile trail.
Yes, I totally agree. And like in the previous slide, and also as John mentioned, the county is working on their bike ped plan. And one of the trails or bike ped paths that we also asked the county to prioritize was the coastal path. So yeah, I will definitely touch base again and also push the county to prioritize that in their plan. And we can start a discussion around how we can actually work around this, getting the state folks involved who actually own the path, and then have somebody from Half Moon Bay and somebody from the county so that it actually gets working.
I'll be on the committee if you have me.
Okay, sure, yeah. Thank you. So coming back to the network priority tool, so I asked a question around what top criteria you would like to use when prioritizing bike projects, and another thing that came up, like which streets are the ones that you think that should be highly prioritized in Half Moon Bay. So this tool that I'm going to talk about helps us answer these questions. So let me take you through what exactly is this tool. So like every bike ped plan has a section where you have hundreds of projects, and then a section where you talk about various criteria like safety, connectivity, harm reduction, where you talk about crashes and collisions, and maybe access to community destinations, access to schools, and several criteria around that. And based on that, you then prioritize, say, this project needs to be done right now to bring about most safety. This project needs to be done right now so that it can bring more safe routes to school. So this tool basically is a tool that we have developed with Copenhagenized Design Company. And it is a standardized open source tool that could be used across any jurisdiction in the 2 counties to prioritize bike projects. So the goal of this project, the tool, is to prioritize bicycle planning projects and to promote a low-stress bicycle network for all the users across the 2 counties. It helps us identify where do people want to go, which destinations do people want to access, which streets need to be made safer, which streets need to be made safer first, and then what type of bicycle facility exactly needs to be built on this street. Here are some of the things that can be achieved using this network priority tool. We can get a prioritized list of corridors based on the selected criteria. This criteria can be input into the GIS files, and a map can be created to represent these corridors. A map helps in better visualization of where these corridors are. It also helps us determine what bicycle facility would be most suitable for each corridor. And finally, data insights can be used for storytelling or for data-driven advocacy. We have a user manual with step-by-step guides and tutorial videos to make the tool user-friendly, and hence it can be run by anyone, also a person who has never used GIS or spreadsheet in their life before. So do you all think that you would be interested in running this tool in the city of Half Moon Bay?
I will say, I think we certainly would be interested in taking a look at it. We just within the last 2 years have approved and adopted our bike ped master plan, and we did actually a lot of this work. We've also done some follow-on work, which will be discussed later on in this conversation, and Jill will particularly talk about sort of how that's related to the LCP. I think we're always open to different ways to think about things, and particularly post-COVID, we're not sure where our funding is going to be, and we may have to come back and reevaluate sort of the priorities and how we go about it. So I think from staff perspective, we're always open to looking at what's out there and what we can bring to the community and deal with that. So I think we're all open. I think we are ahead of the game in many respects in terms of having done a lot of this work. But that work is never done.
I agree with John, and I just wanted to add, you're right, we have a list of 10 priority projects and then pages and pages of other projects that we would like to do. And we did go through a prioritization exercise, but no, that was a year and a half ago, something like that. We did that. So it may be time to do some sanity checking and whether the priorities that we had then are still the same priorities now. This tool could help with that.
Yes,
Maybe.
Definitely. And yeah, this is another plus point that I understand, like a lot of time and money goes in developing a bike ped plan. And it's also there for like a decade or maybe 15 years before it actually gets updated. So another goal of developing this tool is that cities can run this on their own for free, and they can just run it with the help of city staff, or also SVBC also can help run this tool. Plus, this can be run every 2 years just to keep a check on have the priorities changed, or is there anything new we should focus on, and gather community support around it. So yeah, we can definitely check back on this, and I could maybe give a separate presentation around this, and then we can see how we can run this tool. So with this, moving on, another initiative that we recently took was conducting a poll to do research around benchmarking transportation behavior in Santa Clara County. So we secured funding from Santa Clara County to benchmark transportation behavior, and 1,000 people were surveyed with a goal to track progress and benchmark public attitudes towards bicycling and transportation. So our SVBC's goal is to have 100% or 10% of trips by 2025. And we know that currently those who ride are of a certain demographic, mainly white, male, and older. If you're going to achieve our goal, we have to appeal to a broader audience. So we want to be able to slice and dice data demographically. This can help us understand if attitudes towards transportation are different amongst different groups. So this was our goal behind carrying out this study. So I'm just going to go over highlights here because the data is rich in helping folks like you understand what is going to cause folks to change their transportation behavior by understanding how they currently behave and why. Before we jump into that, what do you think are the top factors behind mode choice? Like, what do people think before choosing whether they want to drive? What do you think are these factors?
Time, distance,
cost,
right?
Convenience and safety.
Convenience, distance.
Right. Yes, all of those were options when we asked this question. And what do you think are top barriers to biking?
Dangerous.
Sorry?
Too dangerous.
Okay.
I was just going to say safety. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't have a bike.
Showers at the end of the ride.
Yeah.
Needing to carry things or other people.
Yes. And you might be able to feel that more right now, right?
And just being in a place that's bike friendly or not bike friendly for yes, safety, but how the light is situated, how many stops you have to make, how many, there's so many factors involved in whether you feel like you're in a bike friendly place. There's plenty of places to park your bike, lock it up, do this, do that. It's conducive. The place is geared for bikers. And that makes a big difference on how you would want to use your bike or not.
Right. So these were some of the questions that we asked people in this polling data survey. Let's see what people had to say. So the first big question was, what are the biggest factors that determine transportation choice? And speed was the number one reason across all demographics, followed by safety from crime, ease of use, and safety from crashes. So as most of you pointed out, was that how much time does it take for me to reach there? So that was the first thing that people pointed out while choosing a mode of transportation. It was also very evident that people are not thinking about environment or cost or exercise when they actually make transportation choices. We also captured some demographic differences. Women are twice as concerned than men about safety from crime and crashes. Women with Asian ancestry rate speed 4 points higher than the norm. Folks 65 and older don't care about speed. Safety from crime, so people who live in Santa Clara and women with Latino roots rated them really high, while white men rated this really low. Hispanic women rated safety from crashes 20 points higher than any other folks or than the overall average. Then another question was, what are the barriers to riding? So there are many, and the survey showed that weather isn't one of them. Bay Area has wonderful weather, so people are not really worried about weather when it comes to biking. People feel that places are too far to bike to. It's really stressful to ride in traffic. Bike parking, as a lot of you mentioned, is a problem. The culture doesn't support biking. So the more folks you have around you who ride, the more you will ride and vice versa. But we do not have that bike culture. Then another thing was an important piece of data because it speaks directly to our investment in safe routes to school programs. So what the data shows is that if you learn to ride as a kid, and then you're more likely to ride as an adult. And in particular, it shows that if you rode as a kid and kept riding as a preteen and teen, you are even more likely to ride as an adult. So a conclusion that can be drawn from this is that we need to expand our safe routes to school programs to middle and high school. Right now, they are typically only in elementary school and in a very sparse way. So this is a great motivation that we should encourage safe routes to school work. So here are some takeaways. There are differences between genders, cultures, and ages that are important to understand if we want to get more folks riding. For a woman, safety and speed are big factors in how we choose to go from point A to point B. If we want more folks to ride, we need to slow down cars and create the feel of a trail. That means we need more buffered and protected bike lanes. And finally, we also know that distance and speed matters, meaning land use matters. While safe infrastructure is key, we also need to understand importance of building our cities so that it is easy to bike and walk anywhere we want to go. So there is a lot more in the data that we've collected, and we've published more details on the website. So I'll share with you all this data after the presentation. And hopefully we can get more funding and probably do another round of a similar survey post-COVID and in San Mateo County. So we're looking out for that. Coming to the last piece of the presentation. Before that, any of you have any questions around the tool or the polling data? Okay, so coming to the last bit of the presentation, I'm going to talk about upcoming events that we have and how HMBBPAC can help. So as I talked about advocacy training before, we are going to conduct an advocacy training on November 11th, and we have one training every quarter. So if you know of any friends, network, folks, neighbors who are wanting to get involved in the bike movement, this is a great step to get started. I'll share a link about this advocacy training shortly. Then we've also started monthly forums. So every month we have a forum around various topics. So we started with bike issues as one topic. Then we had network priority tool during one of the topics. This month we are going to talk about San Jose Derrida station and improvements. December 14th, we're going to have advocacy best practices as our forum topic. And we're going to continue this monthly forum series from December onwards on second Monday of every month. So it'll be great if you could all join and let us know if you have any topics that you would want to hear from us about on these monthly forums. And then finally, we have a member party on December 3rd. Like everything else, this is also virtual this year, but we're trying to incorporate some fun activities and some giveaways and so on. So you're all welcome to join.
Let me, I mean, obviously one of the issues that we have is obviously proximity to things. Are you looking to continue even after post-COVID to provide these meetings sort of in the Zoom forum or whatever with that to encourage the distance learning? And I think that's an important question to ask these days.
Yes, in fact, we've seen a rise in our trainings and forums during this COVID period because people are able to access them online. So, like for now, we are definitely planning to continue them over long term online, and maybe like once a while, say once in 6 months, we do something in person so that people can also actually see each other and so on. But yes, definitely, we are planning to continue them online.
How relevant is this November 11th training to the coast side?
This is open to anyone from both the counties. So anyone can participate. And then, so how this is distributed is we talk about how a bike project works and how you can get involved at different stages, right from when a bike plan is in its inception, or if the bike plan is in its funding stage, or if the bike project is in construction stage. And then we talk about how to get contact city staff or BPAC members or elected officials for various issues. And then we also break out into smaller groups, and people can take up a campaign, a hypothetical or a real campaign, and actually work around different strategies and tactics they can use to advocate for the bike project they really care for. So I'd say it's open for everyone, and everyone is welcome to join. If you want us to conduct a advocacy training specific to Half Moon Bay, we're also open to that. If you have a group of people you think should get involved or should get acquainted to this bike movement, we're up for that as well. Then finally, last but not the least, we're here to help, whether it's just by spreading the word and driving attendance to your outreach events or acting as a consultant to implement new programs and policies. We really want to help support the bike movement, even if it's away from the county, urban population or whatever. We really want to be able to help. So we can help lead rides or walking tours. We are conducting virtual rides right now, so we can do that. Then implement and manage safe routes to school programs. So we are an approved vendor under San Mateo County Office of Education. So schools can hire us or work with us to have safe routes to school programs. Then we can help with reviewing designs and grant applications, and also provide support letters if you're applying for any grant funding. We also try to keep city staff up to date about various grant applications that are going on. So this year we had TDA 3 funding grant applications. We had the SMCTA grant funding that was open. And then now cities are also getting funds from Measure A and W every year. So if there is any fund support letter required from our end to support your grant application, we are open for that. Then we can assist with community outreach. Like you have any project that you are trying to build or work on, we are willing to help spread the word in the community. We can help in policy development. So if you're trying to develop a policy, say around bike share or say around bike parking, or trying to encourage developers to have a programmatic element in their development plan, we are willing to help city staff with all these policy developments as well. Then, as I talked about local teams, hopefully soon we can have a local team in Half Moon Bay. We can get involved more in grassroots advocacy. And then run the network priority tool in your city, as we just mentioned. So, any questions? And would you like to hear from us? And what would you like to hear about from us next?
So I just want to express my thanks. This is really, really informative and good information. And just to comment on the poll, I found the poll results fascinating. That just great insight, and hopefully something like that could happen for San Mateo County, and see how the two counties correlate, and or are there regional differences. But yeah, I think very useful information. So thank you.
Sure.
If I could just say, go ahead.
Just curious where you get your funding from, SVBC? Because you have a lot going on there.
Yeah, we have 3 main channels of funding. So we have individual donors. Then we get funding from events. And then the third is grants. So we work with various, like we had a Santa Clara County grant, we have a Google grant to work on different projects. So 3 main sources. And with that, I'm going to add a pitch that I encourage all of you to become a member of our organization. So we are the only organization in San Mateo and Santa Clara County that work around bike infrastructure and bike policies. And membership definitely helps us support our work around infrastructure and policies. So I encourage all of you to become a member. Thanks for that segue, Paul.
If I could, I just, again, thank you so much for agreeing to come on tonight. From the staff perspective, I share the same kind of, wow, a lot to take in. I worked with these folks a bit when I was on the other side of the hill. I really think that it's great if we can start to get engaged and them engaged on the coast side. What I'm going to sort of recommend, if there isn't a lot of banter tonight on this, is that one, I think there's some really good additional information coming from staff on some other issues that sort of intertwine with this. The other piece of this, what I'd suggest is that if you're okay with it, that we would then basically schedule this for a conversation at the next meeting and start to really take a look at some of these areas and figure out what makes sense and what we might ask for some help with, and really look at kind of from the action steps on that. I think this was a great overview. I can't even take it all in at this point, and I'm sure we can share with you the PowerPoint. We'll get the PowerPoint for everybody so you guys can take a look. You can also obviously look at the website, see what they've got and deal with it. But if you're asking for sort of staff direction on what might be the best path forward, certainly any questions you've got the expert here, ask. But if we're kind of moving on from that point, I don't want to leave our expert believe in any way thinking that we didn't think highly of this and their organization. And also, I think we're all pondering how can we use them. So, and only in the best way.
No, we also really look forward to working with you. I will definitely share this PowerPoint and also some links that I mentioned during the presentation. And yeah, please let us know how we can get involved and collaborate on any policies, programs, or events.
It was interesting. We're in the process of doing our climate action and adaptation plan work, and we've got a lot of outreach going. I found the response on the environmental piece to that. I don't know whether it was disheartening, but if nothing else, it was certainly surprising. And I'm kind of going to be intrigued and sort of looking to ask a little more of that question in our outreach efforts directly with our community to see if the coast-side actually reflects. And I think if we can get those questions that you asked and from the poll, from that survey, I'd love to put that up on our site or somewhere in that deal and try to draw some information from the coast side to see how we might actually be different or similar. I'm not sure where we are. I think we all each probably have thoughts on where we might be different. We always think we're different on the coast side. So, but I'd be really, really intrigued to see where where our answers come and whether those are different from the other areas with that. So love to get that information and see what we can do to put that forward as part of our sustainability and climate action work.
Sure, I'll share those with you.
Great, thank you.
I would like to, I would say that maybe at some point in the future, you could take a look at some of the work that we've done. You can maybe take a look, have your organization somehow see what bicycle and pedestrian plan we've come up with. Look at our list of priorities after we maybe we'll have to redo that. But after we have an idea of where we are and where we're going, and then submit that to you to take a look at and see how you could possibly help us, with something with our concrete plans.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I think that
I'd like
also-
to see that happen somehow.
Yep.
I think that'd be cool since you're offering.
Yes.
Yep. I like that.
All right, any other further questions or comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, thank you very much. Again, very informative, and yes, we want to figure out how we want to put this to use.
Great. Thank you so
So,
much.
thanks
It was
again.
wonderful presenting today.
Thank you. So then moving on our agenda, item number 2, so an update by our Community Development Director, Jill Akis, who we have not seen in a little while. So good to see you.
You. Just getting my situation working. It's nice to see everyone. And first of all, I just want to thank you. Thanks, John, for inviting me tonight. And thank you, BPAC. And it's always fun to come and visit you. I got to see you quite a bit when we were working on the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. But you know what? That was adopted by council now just over a year ago. So it's been a while. All right. So I don't have a PowerPoint, but I am going to show you a few things about the local coastal plan. And
I saw thumbs up for that.
yeah, well, we'll see how we do.
We're all heartbroken.
I am going to show you a few things in it, and then just hope that we can have a little bit of time to discuss if you want, or to have follow-up after this session. So before jumping into what I was asked to do was talk about policies and how they relate to the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, let's make sure that we're all on the same page about what the land use plan is and why we have one. Just in brief, most of you know this, the city is wholly within the coastal zone. And as such, it's required to have a local coastal program. And we refer to that as the LCP. I know that you've got that lingo down. The LCP consists of 2 parts, policy and implementation. Implementation is about regulations and strategic planning, such as our zoning code, and frankly, the bicycle and pedestrian master plan is a good example. The policy side is the land use plan. And I'm going to share my screen. If I can figure that out, give me a sec. So you should be seeing the planhmb.org site. You see it? I'm scrolling on it. Okay. I'm only showing it just to give you a way to make some contact with this document, and we'll talk about it briefly here as I continue. So the land use plan covers really all of the foundational planning for the city. For example, development, public works, coastal access and recreation, natural resources, scenic and visual resources, and other sections as well. We encourage you to peruse this. Now, I do need to say the City Council just adopted the land use plan at their meeting in their second meeting in October. They adopted it with a few changes, and so we're still incorporating their edits. So this is the version right before they adopted, and as soon as we get the final version up, we'll put it up there, and we'll be very clear about that. And I'll let you know what the next steps are for this document before I wrap this up. So what is this land use plan all about? It's sitting on a foundation of public input, the community needs, Coastal Act requirements, and a whole lot of data and analysis. And this is really the blueprint for the city's planning for decades, as opposed to a strategic plan, which is usually like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan that has tune-ups along the way. These ingredients are mulled over and brought together through a public process. It's overseen by the city's ceaselessly working land use planning chefs. I'm going to use a silly metaphor. And these guys and gals, these really hardworking people, are your city council appointed planning commission, which gives a chance to acknowledge Vice Chair Reddick. Nice to see you tonight. Hi, Steve. He is your planning commission liaison, and he's just coming off of having spent a long summer working on the final throes of this policy document. And for, all the kudos and appreciation that we owe to the Planning Commission, we need to remember something, and I'll extend the corny metaphor. It was the BPAC, as well as the Parks and Rec Commission, who brought a few appetizers to the table, so to speak. The bicycle and pedestrian master plan is really part of the implementation of this big policy document. Remember, the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, as we already noted, it was finished first, as was the parks master plan. This was a little bit cart before horse, having implementation kind of firmed up before policy. But that's okay. Through the development of the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, you identified priority projects, studies, guidelines, that whole set of guidelines. You identified pedestrian priority zones, locations for bike boulevards, and overall support for active transportation. So that was an incredible base for a primary tenet of the land use plan, which is the town boulevard. And I was going to, this is in chapter 3. It's just one of our quick graphics noting that the town boulevard is our Highway 1 and 92. And this land use plan does not show increased capacity for Highway 1 and 92. It re-envisions these roads in context with and oriented to the needs of the city, as opposed to a highway running through the city. It envisions numerous types of improvements over time, consistent with the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. It could include safer crossings, maybe a roundabout. It identifies the East Side Parallel Trail along Highway 1. That's the opposite side of the Naomi Patridge Trail. You're already seeing segments of that in implementation. I know that Ray has probably brought you some of those things. And just scanning a little bit through this chapter 3, you'll see we're talking about the circulation system from really a high level being a policy document. It's multi-jurisdictional, it addresses community character, and we're really looking at how the system will support the town center, the core of the city through the land use plan. So then the Coastal Act, just to bring you farther along into what we really have to plan for in a local coastal land use plan, is emphasizing one of the Coastal Act primary tenets, which is to maximize coastal access. This is critical. It's absolutely important for us to have a coastal access plan in our land use plan. And so the focus, this is pulled out of chapter 5. This is the coastal access and recreation chapter, is in policy support for the detailed implementation measures, a lot of them out of the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. We were able to use the bicycle and pedestrian master plan to, once we worked on where coastal access improvements, obviously some are already located in these areas, others need to be improved over time, how to get to and fro. And in many ways, we're hoping to do that with fewer cars, parking once and walking for visitors, not having to use a car at all for residents. One of the things that we find over and over again in working with this community is when a circulation system for bikes and peds works for residents, it's always a good thing for visitors. So by focusing on the needs of residents, we feel that we are really woven together a great network and system that will satisfy the Coastal Commission for the obligation that the city has for implementing the Coastal Act. There's a lot more in Chapter 5 on topic areas that will be interesting to you. I'm stalling here on a policy page so you can get the gist of this bit of a tome of a document. And it's not as an accessible document as your fabulous bicycle pedestrian master plan that I keep on my desk all the time. I use it every day. But your planners and John and his crew, we use this every day too. So these guys need to work together, and we'll get a little bit more to why that matters so much. A couple more things in this chapter that I think will strike your eye. Let me just scroll a bit. Here's our bicycle and pedestrian coastal access section. What you'll notice when you go in here is that it's generalizing a lot of the improvements that you wanted so that we're not locking the city into one specific thing. For example, you had a discussion tonight where you were already talking about, well, gee, maybe we need to reconsider some of our priority projects in the bike ped master plan. It is fine to do that. We wanted to make sure your policy document has leeway for doing that, with enough of kind of bumpers around it to make sure that we're staying within the intent of providing for access. You will also notice going through here, though, a lot of specific things are called out where we don't think there's any negotiation. For example, the East Side Parallel Trail. We've got to name it. We have to show where it would be located. We want Coastal Commission to support that improvement. And there's many other trails in here that you have talked about and policies around implementing them. Bike lanes, highway crossings, sidewalks, pathways, all of this was bolstered and improved because of the work that you did on the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. We even borrowed some of the graphics out of the plan where they were really relevant to the relationship between going from one neighborhood to another, connecting downtown to the beach, some of those really primary access routes that people wanted to see bolstered. So I'm just, again, back to this high-level policy document. It's got these generalized policies around the plan that you're really familiar with. Your plan is strategic. It will have less time between updates. This is possibly going to sit for a couple decades. We plan with a planning horizon of 2040, although we were running numbers to 2050. I always try to plan another 50 years past that, just so that there's life in a plan. And it would take a long time tonight to really go into that. But if anybody wants to talk to me about land use planning at another time, I'm happy to do that. But, you know, this is a 400-page document. It's hard to give you a meaningful flyover in the middle of a BPAC meeting. So just you saw what the structure of the document's like. You see there's a lot of policies in here and how they relate to the work that you've done. So just let staff know if you'd like to spend more time with it. We're happy to sit down with you virtually or across a very wide coffee table with our masks on, and we will give you a tour of the document and we can tailor it to you. John's got his hand raised.
I just want to, again, thank you, Jill, for one, unbelievable hours put in to get to this document and to get to the council approval. But we owe her and Brittany and a host of others a great lots of clapping and thank yous for that. That being said, I thank you for coming tonight. I just wanted to make sure that the BPAC sort of understood the relationship between the document that they were very involved in and a document that they were not so involved in, and that latter document, the one that you've been working on so diligently over the last year, particularly, did not leave them behind and
no. Let me,
and foundational. Jill and I were having this conversation just the other day on the uniqueness of having actually done an implementation document, 2 implementation documents before we actually did the local coastal plan. And it was really one, I think, it was really cool doing it because they're really really fun, more defined projects, and that's the Parks Master Plan and the Ped Bike Plan. But beyond that point was also a response to say, hey, the community really needs to start to see how this plan all fits together in the bigger picture of how their lives may be changed, both from parks and bike ped. And so, but this is, I in 35 years, I have never seen a bike ped plan or a Parks Master Plan actually go ahead and get adopted in advance of the underlying larger policy documents. So we did something different, but I think we did it for the right reasons, and I think it still stands true. And they both stand the test of time right now. A limited time they've been out there.
Can I have 2 more minutes? I'm almost done, and that's all true and good. So I just want to make sure you have one more layer of appreciation for your contribution to this, because why does the land use plan matter for bicycle and pedestrian planning if you already have a bicycle and pedestrian master plan? Well, this established consistent vertical tiering. We have, I'll do it as a demo. This is your policy document, and it's tiering over your implementation plan. And there's many other implementation plans here, but this is the thread that you guys spend a lot of time on. And what it does for you is has a consistency from policy all the way to where crosswalk paint might go on the ground. It is vital to have the policies support the projects that you want to do to help you get them approved. It also supports environmental review coverage, such as CEQA coverage. I know some of you are familiar with that. I see Carlene, yes, you've been there. As well as getting approvals from state agencies. One of the things that Caltrans in particular is always going to want to know, is it consistent with your city's planning document? Yes, that is a box you got to be able to check. You'll be able to check it. And then, of course, grant funding. Grant funding applications ask that same question. So we really are excited about this to give a backstop to the work that you've been doing. What's next for this? It's not done because we're in the coastal zone, and this is an LCP and not a general plan. This needs to go off to the Coastal Commission for certification. Certification for them is their final approval or blessing. We're packing it up for them now. It's an elaborate, there's no, it's a thankless task. It's brutal, but we will give them the box of stuff they want and need, and that's required. And we will run this thing all the way through. Every single thing they ask us for, we will pony it up. We will let you know when it goes to hearing. It might be nice to get a support letter from the BPAC. I've been wanting to, we'd really like that. And so then just in closing, thank you. We've really loved working with you on the Bike Ped Master Plan. We loved using the plan to backstop and help us with our land use plan update. And going forward and using it, or if you have questions about what we're up to over in Community Development Department, just ask John or shoot me an email, and we're happy to sit down with you. It's really nice to see you all again. It's been a while.
Thank you, Jill. And I'll open it up to the committee if you have questions or comments for Jill. I see Steve.
Yeah, Jill has been very generous just now with praising other people who were involved in this multi-year effort. But as John says, she and the team on staff who have driven this for so long worked harder than everybody else on it. So she and her team deserve a huge amount of credit for where this plan puts Half Moon Bay at this point in our history. And every resident of Half Moon Bay should be grateful to Jill and her team for this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. We signed up to do it, though. It was our pleasure.
Well, I watched you for the last couple of years, and every single presentation was articulate. So well done.
All right.
I have a question.
I just want to say that I'm hesitant to invite Jill to any of your meetings because I never can stand up to her presentations and her presence. So it's
just chatting about
Sorry, got me and Moz, but we do the best we can, but it's not Jill.
All right.
You guys are great.
On your toes, John. Very important.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill, for coming.
Jill, I do have one question about Dunes Beach and the Coastal Trail. We were talking about the Coastal Trail and we're talking about Dunes Beach. I don't know if that's going to go or not, but if it does, they'd be the largest, user of the Coastal Trail. Is there any relationship between their potential development and the Coastal Trail?
So I can answer your question in two ways. One, first of all, I have to remind everybody that the Dunes Beach is an active application project and it's not on your agenda. So we cannot talk about it in any level of detail. But I can answer your question generally and just say any property that is proximate to the Coastal Trail and would be subject to environmental review and a planning process that is going to have a lot of detail is going to consider impacts to coastal access. That is one of the requirements that we have in our planning review by the Coastal Act and our own land use plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. All right, you guys, I'm going to check out because I got to get ready for the Planning Commission packet.
Thank you, Jill. Very much appreciated.
Okay, bye.
All right, moving on our agenda. So moving on to number 3, presentation by Jennifer Chong on the Our Voice pilot project.
So if I could, I don't think Jennifer has been before the BPAC before. She's one of our many superstars. She's a senior analyst with us, came on and helped us with a lot of things dealing with finance. And, she helped us when we were down people for the budget 2 years ago. She just jumps in wherever we need her. She's doing the solid waste franchise and a lot of things. She basically has been willing to take on, kind of reach projects all the time. And this is one of those. And so I'm really, really happy that she was willing to jump in on something that wasn't comfortable for her, wasn't in her normal realm of work. And I'm very pleased that she's here to talk to you guys a little bit about it. And I also thank those members who were part of the process as well. So we'll learn a little more about that. But thanks and welcome, Jennifer.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you all so much for having me. For those of you that I haven't gotten to meet before, my name's Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here and to get to meet you virtually. And for those that I've seen previously, good to see you all again. Tonight, I'm so pleased to have been invited to talk a little bit about the Our Voice pilot project that was conducted over this summer. Unlike Jill, I do have a little slideshow, but I promise to keep it brief, and I do think that it will be beneficial in helping to kind of explain what this project was intended to do and what we accomplished. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Great. And all right, so here we go. So for those of you that have not heard of the Our Voice pilot project before, we really went into this project with 3 primary goals, and that was to evaluate the fit of this Our Voice approach that I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide, to see whether or not this discovery tool that Stanford University developed was a good fit for our community in gathering data. We wanted to test our remote facilitation skills in Zoom. So the project happened between June and July, and it was originally slated to actually go to the community in March, right before COVID hit. So we really transitioned into this brand new project with this additional project goal and objective. And we figured if we were going to do all of this outreach and test out these new techniques, we might as well try to gather some data as well on a topic that our council and our community find really important. And we chose transportation. And so we asked our pilot project members to answer the question, what features in your community make it easier or harder to get around without a car? And I'll go into more details about exactly how this project works on the next slide. So as I mentioned, it was a 6-week project in terms of our community engagement. We had started working on this back in December, and again, was halted by COVID in March. But generally speaking, our members, which included Paul and, which included Paul and Anna from the BPAC, were part of this team that really put in 6 weeks of really intensive work to get this project through. There were 2 facilitating partners. That was the city of Half Moon Bay, and we brought in Stanford University to help support this and facilitate a lot of our meetings. And then we also leaned on a lot of our community partners to help us create a pilot project team that was diverse in age, demographics, geography, and the like. Once we had our team together, we sent out our citizen scientists, our group of 6, on a 10-day interval to collect as much data as they wanted that, again, answered the prompt, what makes it easier or hard to get around Half Moon Bay without a car? And they used their whatever mobile device they had to go out and take pictures, which they were then able to tag either as a positive or a negative feature with a smiley face or a sad face, which you can see in the right-hand corner. There's the green smiley, and then there's the red sad. And then the remaining weeks, we had them reflect on that data and categorize them to figure out what are the priorities that this group sees if we were to focus on transportation opportunities. This data was then taken and presented to the City Council Mobility Subcommittee meeting on July 28th. And that presentation was primarily ran by our participants. So our participants were the ones that put the presentation together. They were the ones that split up who was going to present, and it included Paul and Anna. And they were the ones that decided what they wanted to focus on. And so that presentation really focused around 5 main themes that are on the next slide. And altogether, it had 17 different recommendations. In addition to the mobility subcommittee meeting that was present, we also had city staff. We also invited representatives from San Mateo County, recognizing that transportation issues do not stop at the north side or the south side of the city of Half Moon Bay, and we thought it would be beneficial for them to be there to receive that information. And we also had a representative from Samtrans at that presentation as well. And so the recommendations that came out of this project from the pilot project team directly had those 5 main themes, and that was really signage, trail maintenance, bike safety, pedestrian safety, and bus stops. And I didn't put all 17 recommendations on this slide. I thought it would be a bit overwhelming, but primarily the signage was really focused on safety and directional, getting people to the assets on the coast side so they know where to go and they are encouraged to use them. For trail maintenance, it was just making them safer by cutting back the brush, making sure visibility is appropriate for pedestrians and for bicyclists, so that way they don't, collide with incoming cars. Which also ties into the bike safety and pedestrian safety, which both emphasize certain areas throughout the city of Half Moon Bay. Bike safety, it was really emphasized that Main Street and the schools could really use some additional bike options, and that education, just in terms of educating the community about how to utilize bike routes, bike lanes safely, was something that came up. And then finally, bus stops. That was the main reason why Samtrans was invited, just to have a conversation about how do we make the bus system more friendly to the users, which included putting up bike schedules, adding benches, bus shelters, and just considering rider convenience and making sure that the bus stops were located within proximity of places that people wanted to go and not just in random spots that there wasn't much to do. So those were the 5 main themes. Happy to talk about those more if people have specific questions, or defer to Paul and Anna, who again came up with those themes after this. So I'm just going to move right along. And so I'm really happy to share some of the really positive outcomes that came out of this 6-week pilot project. We really didn't know where we were going with it. And again, we had those 3 main goals, but primarily it was to see if we could even do any kind of outreach during COVID. From the city's perspective and also from Stanford's perspective, we think it's been a huge success. We've gotten really positive feedback from our participants. And so the city is looking at pursuing a scaled up version of this project that hopefully can include more voices, more representatives from different groups in our community, so we can get a more comprehensive feel of what what the priorities are for the community. We have the bike ped master plan, as you all mentioned, but also as you've talked about tonight, sometimes those priorities get a little bit out of date, and it's important to make sure we true that up, to make sure that the resources that we have are going to the priorities that you all are most concerned about right now. And so that's something that we're hopefully going to work towards maybe in the next year. We're looking to go after some grant funding to help support that as well. Something that's we're in the works right now that I'm really excited to share is that we did actually, from this pilot project, get recommended for a TFCA grant that we officially got. So it was $109,000 to make some significant improvements to the downtown Main Street area. And I'll talk about that on the next couple slides. We also completed some significant trail maintenance, and I have some after pictures on the right side. The top, for you bike riders, you've probably noticed sometimes it gets a little bit overgrown and it gets a little bit difficult to ride some of these trails. And so after the pilot project, we made it a priority to go out there and cut all the hedges back. So again, it's a safe space for people to use that trail. And then we've followed up on a couple other requests from that pilot project to make the pedestrian walkway on Highway 92 between Highway 1 and Main Street to create more space for pedestrians and to make sure that the signs are bolted in properly so they don't impede those that are trying to walk. And then again, we've connected with Samtrans, and that's an ongoing conversation to see how we can improve the bus infrastructure on the coastside to make it a more appealing option for our coastside residents and visitors. And so I know that we have a grant update later on in this presentation, but John and I thought that because this really was a follow-up to this Our Voice pilot project, that it made sense to just talk through it right now and let you know exactly what came out of this pilot project. And so we did apply and successfully received a $110,000 grant from the TFCA, or from the Air District rather, with only a 15% match from the city. And this project really emphasizes 4 different components. And so that's bicycle routes, crosswalks, signage, and streeteries. And it's really, really emphasized in the downtown area. For those that are really interested in knowing even more about each of these components, the funding agreement with CCAG, who is administering the funds from the Air District, is going to council on November 17th. And so I would encourage anyone that wants to see more specific what we're hoping to do, to take a look at that staff report, which should be posted next Friday. But just as a little bit of a snippet, this is the overhead shot of what we proposed as part of our grant application. So you'll see that there's, about a mile, 1.3 miles of Class 3 bike routes, which were directly pulled from your bicycle pedestrian master plan. And so going back to what Jill said, that plan really laid the foundation and made us able to go after this grant in addition to the Our Voice project. So those two things together really opened up this opportunity for us to go after this grant funding. So thank you all so much for putting in that work. And so we're looking at up to 1.3 miles of Class 3 bike routes. There might be some adjustments that we do in there, again, to meet the current need and make sure that we are providing the most safe routes for our visitors and our locals. We are looking to install 5 high visibility crosswalks, which are indicated by those red circles. And we are also looking to put signs around town as appropriate to help direct people to parking off Main Street, to avoid cars that are idling, waiting for parking spaces on the actual main corridor. And also just to direct bicyclists to these paths. Again, going back to the signage recommendation from the Our Voice pilot project, making sure that if we do have this bicycle infrastructure, that people know where it is and can very easily and quickly get to it. And so signage is a big portion. And then the last section will be the streeteries. And we're looking to work with the Downtown Business Association and some of those local businesses to install or configure maybe up to 4 streeteries. We're not quite sure what that's going to look like. We're open to what's going to work best for the community and work for the businesses in that area. But that's kind of a snapshot of what we have coming down the pipe that, again, is a direct result of your work, your members' work, and the community's work. And so with that, happy to take questions. Or maybe have Paul and Anna chime in if I missed anything.
If I could just jump up, we are still I can foresee some questions coming about, well, what's that going to look like? What are we going to? We're planning to come back. We're not going to. We'll get you more detail when we get the detail. This was a really quick turnaround deal that we were working on in the grant, and very short time and turnaround on it. We're still, thankfully, BACMed, or the area, the Air District and CCAG have indicated a willingness to be really pretty flexible in terms of allowing us to move around and shift around, funding a little bit to make things work. What I also want to just be clear on this is that this was a quick build project. So these are intended to be intermediate. They are not intended to be the final designs. We're not looking at the painting we do on the street to be anything but actual paint, to probably get the 3 to 5 years out there. So we can see what works and what kind of goes out there and see if it makes sense to readjust before we go in and invest in putting down the plastic and the high visibility long-term stuff. So that's what this is about. The signage, obviously, we can move around and kind of deal with it, but the streeteries issue is an interesting one. Just simply how did that come into play with this? Well, this is about congestion management. They wanted us to look at trying to encourage more pedestrian access along the main street. Frankly, part of this is also about trying to push people to go and take ways and find their way along the highway if they're just bypassing through and rather than using Main Street. So there's a lot of sort of moving parts as to where this TFCA grant is going. I applaud Denise on our staff as well as Jennifer for having the gumption to pull this together and deal with it. And I'll say this again, we plan on coming back, and if it takes us coming back to a special meeting, then we'll talk to you about it and deal with it. I'm hoping we can just deal with it in the January. And I'll say one last thing. We're looking to bid this along with the project that Ray's been working on, which includes the Main Street work and including that separated bike lane with the along Main Street toward the high school. So we're looking to hopefully bid those together so we can get the best possible package and price on that, but also to tie those improvements together so we can look at this on a bigger perspective than just this one or this one. I'll shut up now.
So I wanted to ask, and you kind of touched on some of it, what the timeline was for the project implementation. And then my second question was on the streeteries. I assume those probably will involve removing parking. So I'm curious if that is in fact part of it, and has that been raised with the business community or other stakeholders who sometimes are opposed to losing?
I'll take that one first. Yeah, that one's a tough one. You know, I mean, however, I'm sure most of you have been in San Mateo, San Carlos, or anywhere else, and they're very vibrant. The streets are vibrant. Those downtowns are vibrant, and amazingly, people are finding parking. And I think that we all can agree that we can find parking around here to be able to go and take advantage of that. And so I think some of that is something that the folks have to learn a little bit, and it's a little short-sighted in some regards to that. But let me just say this, we're open to it not being on Main Street as well. This could fund streeteries that are located elsewhere. We've considered closing down the access drive from the City Hall into Main Street and closing that. We have some issues with disabled parking that we've got to relocate and deal with. So that makes it a little more challenging, but also the side streets are available. And frankly, you know, we're even talking about whether it makes sense to, instead of, if we don't have an interest from the businesses themselves, as to whether we use this money and build the parklets ourselves and start to figure out where they go. In front of Pasta Moon, we have probably 3+ years until we're looking at construction of the bridge. So that location seems to be a really logical point to deal with that we could, you know, test drive a parklet. So there's kind of all these things out there we think that can all kind of work out. And obviously the weather will dictate whether the streeteries are something, and the rules changes, and COVID itself. But those are all things. So that's why I say it's a bit flexible, and our folks at the city manager's office are working directly with the Chamber of Commerce and the downtown business group to talk through this, and hopefully we can provide them some money to help feed some of this. From the perspective of timing, we have really until the end of the fiscal year, I guess you could say. But our objective is, one, obviously with the streeteries, to try to make those available and try to facilitate that as soon as we possibly can, as soon as the funding's made available by CCAG. And part of that is the 17th meeting is to approve the funding agreement. And then we are hoping to bid near the first of the year, but after the first of the year, probably February, realistically, for the striping work, and look at that probably March, April with weather and all that deal. So pretty quickly in government terms for turnaround on that work.
Great, thank you.
Paul, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mario. Yeah. Can I go back to the pilot project?
Please.
So, I mean, first of all, I want to thank Jennifer for leading the project. She did an outstanding job of leading us, working with the folks at Stanford and the team, and working really quickly and with some real tight turnaround to get to the point that we got with the recommendations that we made, that we took to the mobility subcommittee. I think it would be worth circulating all of the recommendations that we came up with to the BPAC so that you can see what we came up with. I don't think there was anything in there that was particularly surprising to anybody who's on the BPAC. But nevertheless, it was kind of, in a way, you could say it was some verification, if you like, of sort of the assumptions that we'd made and the work that we'd done with the bicycle pedestrian master plan. And we were aware that this was a small group of people, 6 people, trying to represent the community as best we could. And I think one of the conclusions that came out of this, and I'm pleased to see that the project may get expanded, is to get more input into this whole discussion about how to get people out of cars and getting around town in different ways. Because we were, like I said, a small group, and we were learning how to do this kind of community outreach exercise virtually, which had some pros and some fairly serious cons to it as well. So I encourage you just to read what we came up with, and bear in mind that the city did take our recommendations very seriously and is committing to implementing some of them. And as Jennifer said, they went out with the weed whackers and cleared the trail up by Wave Crest and some of the A&B Patridge Trail very quickly after we talked to them. So yeah, there's some good stuff in there. I think some good recommendations that I think you should take a look at.
We'll certainly put that in the packet and send it off to you guys.
Great.
And we're excited about the ability to hopefully continue to work with Stanford and scale this up a bit and go with that. We just didn't know, honestly, what this was going to be like. My staff brought it to me and I said, what is this? So it took a little bit of convincing for me to agree that we wanted to invest the limited staffing resources and time that we have. But I'm thrilled that we did it. And again, thank you, Anna, and the rest of the group there for taking that time, and obviously for our staff as well for having the vision to say, let's take a look at this and see what we can do. This kind of is a takeaway from a lot of what we saw, I think, with the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition and the work that they're doing. So this is right in line with much of that touch.
I would just like to say thank you to Jennifer and Paul and Anna and everyone involved. I think it's great that we did this and that we're seeing action so quickly on something that's important. So way to go. Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll get you that information and we'll go from there, and we'll see if we can scale this up and get our friends at Stanford to agree and move it forward on a scaled up version.
Great. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I like how everything is kind of tying in together tonight. Very nicely done.
You'd think we'd actually thought about it and planned it, but I don't know.
I was going to saw you, John.
Sometimes it just comes together. Jennifer was supposed to do our voices the last meeting that got canceled, so I can't take credit. No one can take credit for that one, but I'm glad it actually happened the way it did. I think it really fits neatly together.
Great. Well, good. Then moving along, project updates, and I think that's going to be you, John. We got Highway 1 South.
Well, I've got Ray here and
that's right.
as well, and I will take. How about I take a whack at it a little bit, and then Ray can kind of correct me where I screwed it all up. So just actually proof that I'm listening to when he tells me what's up with it. So we'll start with Highway 1 South. I think by now most of you probably have traveled to the south a little bit and have seen that we're starting work there. We had a great groundbreaking, and I know everybody says, well, what happened, it takes a little while to get everything mobilized, and we still had some minor approvals to go through with Caltrans, and they're going to be putting in the K-rail separations for the lane closure. You can see this week they were taking out the pork chop that was the separation between the high-speed right turn off of the highway. So they're going at gangbusters. And the big piece to that is they've looked now at the schedule with some lead time, up to 26 weeks of lead time for some of the signal material we're dealing with. We're still looking at June as a hopeful end date of completion date of the work. So, which I'm thankful and happy for, because I thought it was going to be longer than that. So hopefully weather permitting and all the delivery stuff we're in good shape. Ray, did I screw it up totally?
Hey, you were totally on the dot. It was, that's exactly where we are. And tomorrow they're going to do some striping and then followed by K-rails, taking one of the lanes out in both northbound and southbound direction. And I was there yesterday and today meeting with the electrical subcontractor for the trenching and PG&E and all the staff from the contractor, Edric Construction. And you see this picture behind me is what they were doing yesterday. And I see that bicyclists, there was like about a dozen of them all together trying to cross, going through the construction area. And just wanted to make sure that they're all safe. And we have traffic control people that get them through the intersection. So I look forward to having that signal there and make it safer for those bicyclists. Like John said, he's exactly correct. We're shooting, the current schedule looks that we're going to be done by June if Caltrans approves all our submittals. And we have about more than 24 submittals that we approved, about half of them, and the other half going through Caltrans. So they have to approve the submittals, obviously, for what type of material we're going to purchase, the specifications, even though it's in the plans and specs, but they still have to approve it. It goes to their headquarters and they have to approve it and send it back to us. We notify the contractor and the contractor orders the material. So we're very happy. Right now, the contractor is very cooperative. They have a good reputation and we want to get this done as soon as possible. But we also want to make it safe. So we're going to go slow. We're going to watch it and we're going to make sure that the Caltrans is happy as we go forward. So, John, you were right.
Paul was asking to speak.
Yeah, quick question. Yeah, it is a bit hairy there at the moment. I rode through there on Wednesday, and with the construction work going on and traffic still.
Is that one of your people?
I don't. No, I was on my own.
Okay. All right.
So when does that right-hand high-speed lane get blocked off so that the traffic can no longer use it?
Tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it's gone after that?
Yes, tomorrow, no later than Monday.
Okay.
Tomorrow, because we actually removed, if you recall, the pork chop was between that right lane and the through lane. Between the high speed and the through lane, there's a pork chop, supposed to be like a landscape area. So that was removed and we patched it in with asphalt. Okay. So that was done yesterday and today. And so tomorrow they're coming in with striping. And they're going to stripe that right turn out, and then the people will just have to come to the intersection and stop and make that right turn.
Make the 90-degree turn.
Exactly.
I can also vouch for Ray's talking to the contractor and making sure that their flag crews and the traffic control folks are keeping an eye on the bicyclists so they can get through in a reasonable amount of time safely. This is a heavily used bicycle point, and we don't want folks to be, needlessly waiting around and having issues, but also, needlessly being put at risk. So we recognize that right now, we're in that transition to getting the K-rails in and striping done, and but we'll continue to remind them of the need to be aware of the bicyclist out there.
Good. Thank you.
I'll test it tomorrow.
Okay. Let us know if we fail.
I'll be there.
I know you're trying as hard as you can.
All right. East Side Path to the north. So one of the things that Ray and I did a couple of weeks ago was meet and try to put new terminology to the to the path and the segments. So because I'm dying trying to figure out which one are we talking about and dealing with it. Now, I don't know if we're successful with it, but we've started it. So we're going to at least identify the East Side Path to the north as being one piece to that. And we're actually going to identify them by segments. In general, I will start with the bad, which is that we did not get a grant funding for the piece between Spindrift and Rousseau Francais, the bridge and all of that, right, Ray?
Right.
We got denied on that one. We weren't surprised by it, but we have to continue to request that work. We're working on the link from the end of the East Side Trail up to Murata. We're working on the environmental process with that. It got a little weird because of, if you noticed, our friends at SAM had a little bit of problems with their project up there and did some environmental damage to existing willows that was right in the path of where this trail is going. So I don't, as dealing with the SAM side of it, I'm not happy because it means more money. From the actual trail process, it might have actually helped us. So the good news, bad news. It might help us a little bit on the trail in terms of environmental, given the work and the damage that sort of already has taken place. So we're working on that one, and then obviously we're hammering out details on the other piece of the north, the East Side Trail to the north, which is related to Highway 1 North, but. That one we're still plugging along with. Any additional, Ray, to add to that?
Yeah, so like you said, we have come up with a new numbering system. We now call it the East Side Trail North number 4. And it goes from Roosevelt to Murata, where the county starts their construction next year. They're still trying to get their encroachment permit from Caltrans, just like we are. We had total of $350,000, $315 from Measure A and $35,000 from the city. We had applied for TVA Article 3 grant, and thanks for all the recommendations, letters from BPAC and also Carlene through the school district. We got the $350,000 additional funding we needed for the construction. So now we have a total of $700,000 for that that's ready to go. So that one is, we have 95% plans. That's with Caltrans. Caltrans has asked us to go through the peer process. We kind of adds to the process a little bit for us because we have a bridge over a waterway. We have a short bridge, and Caltrans has to send that through Caltrans headquarters in Sacramento, and we have to fill out the peer, which is the project engineering evaluation report. Which is an additional step that we have to go through. But in the meantime, we also completing the environmental. As you recall, the environmental was given to us as the lead agency by Caltrans. And we have everything completed except for the cultural resources, which was the office in DC. The federal office in DC has been closed since the COVID. So we've been waiting for them for 6 months. They haven't opened yet. So now we're going through the state, paying an additional $1,000 fee to go to the state and access their records to get that. And once we get that, pretty much our environmental is complete, and we could submit that to Caltrans. And then also take it through the planning commission, et cetera. That would complete the process. And but it's pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of getting through Caltrans and the encroachment permit and getting it done. We are in line with what the county is going to do. So they're still in the same process again with the encroachment permit. So we're hoping both of them are going to get done about the same time. On the portion for Highway 1 North, which is from Main Street to Spindrift, as John was mentioning, that project has submitted 100% plans to Caltrans. The plans are in good shape. We're waiting for Caltrans comments. We have located some utilities that have to be relocated. We have some overhead PG&E power lines that are going to be in the bicycle and pedestrian path. There's 7 of them. And we're trying to relocate that out of the area so we can put the path in. And there's also a gas line that, even though it's not in conflict, is a big gas line. It goes under the roadway, crosses it, and it's not in conflict with the vehicle lanes, but it's going to be right at the surface at the bike lane. So we got to drop that to go under the bike and pedestrian class 1 path. For that project, we have about $7 million, 3.5 from the TA, and a little over 3.1 million from the city. Roughly total about $7 million we have for that project. The current estimate is about between 10 and $11 million, so we are somewhat short. So in order to get the difference, we've applied 3 grants the past month and a half. One was the ATP grant, the first one. The second one we applied for was Measure A Bike and Pet grant. And the third one was HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program. And thanks again to the BPAC, Adrienne and Carlene, getting it from the Unified School District. We applied for all 3. We barely qualified as far as the benefit cost ratio because they have a very strange formula. They like basically cheap projects, you know, the number of miles you're going to put in with the least amount of money. So, and this is not a cheap project. So,
hey Ray.
Yes.
Have you yet put together the map that basically shows the different segments? And if not, can we offline, we can put that together so we can then provide that to the BPAC. But when we come back and talk to them ever, one of the things we should pop up is that map that just shows the different segments so everybody knows what we're talking about. It's hard to visualize.
Yes.
These, so I appreciate it. Thanks, Michelle, for for pointing that out.
Yeah, we put a map together when we applied for the ATP, the Measure A, and the HSIP that shows all the different segments. But I'd like to change the titles to what John and I we talked about, the numbering system, because the names that we had doesn't comply with the current numbering system. So I'll take that map and put our numbering system on it and then forward it to you. So, and to Michelle, and then we can send it to BPAC.
The whole BPAC, we'll send it to everybody.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So that's pretty much, so for the Highway 1 North, along with the Class 1, we are looking at completing the encroachment permit, and we have to get the Army Corps of Engineers permit because it crosses the slough there, and we want to make sure that we have all the both federal and state permits in hand. So it's going to take through about the middle of next year before Caltrans approves it, as well as the Army Corps, et cetera, and the 404 permit. So we're looking probably end of next year or beginning of the following year to go out to construction for that segment, assuming we're going to get the funding through one of these agencies for the extra construction cost.
Okay. We good?
Any questions?
So Main Street, I mentioned that with the TFCA grant that we're gonna tie those 2 together with the striping and the bicycle safety project that we were looking at for Main Street, heading over to the north toward the high school. We've been here with that, but that should happen this spring. And if there's any questions, otherwise I think we can jump over that one unless there's specific questions. Seeing none. I
have a question, John.
Yeah.
Who was elected president?
I haven't paid attention. You know, they'll tell me when they tell me, you know.
They said next week, maybe.
I'm old enough to not really care that much about it in some ways. The power of the presidency is overrated, in my opinion. But that being said, I think we all know who is pulling ahead, so we'll go from there. Hey, one of the things that I wanted to bring you, the railroad to Coastal Trail. Unfortunately, I am nowhere with that, but I didn't want that to be left unsaid or to acknowledge to you that that it is on my list and on our list as the department to look at after the first of the year to try to design that and get that moving forward. The council was really good, particularly Adam was really strongly convicted to getting that piece done and included that in the capital improvement program, despite COVID-related cost reductions and savings that we were required to take from that point. So we want to make that happen and deal with that. So that's certainly on the list and hasn't been forgotten. There's also a piece of trail that most people, if you've gone all the way to the Ritz-Carlton, there's that piece of trail that's it's really a piece that's over near the bridge that goes over the golf course that continues to be on my list since I think I started here. And I'm if I have to go in there and start clearing it out myself and doing it, I think I'm about ready to get there. So we're trying to figure out, it's just been a really challenging issue to try to figure out how to fix it in a meaningful way. There's roots, there's tree roots, there's all kinds of things there. So it's just not an easy piece of trail to figure out the solution to, but we're going to figure that out and we're going to make that happen and deal with that if I have to do it primarily in-house. So those are a couple of pieces that I think are critical to safety and path improvements that we are committed to making happen. And so we'll do what we can to make that happen and put that out so we can hopefully have that before the end of fiscal year. Yes, Paul.
Sorry, John, just to go back to Main Street and the related bicycle improvements. One of the ones that was in our on our priority list of 10 was a buffered bike lane, like a class 4 bike lane between 92 and Highway 1, basically going past the high school. What's the status of that?
Ray, you want to run on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the Transportation for Clean Act Fund, TFCA. And that's one of the portions that John was referring to. We combined that with the rest of Main Street improvements in terms of bicycles and the signage, et cetera. Okay. And we are planning to go out there and do this project in the next few months. And Denise Hutton, our senior engineer, and myself, they're working on the plans, and it should be implemented within the next 6 months.
Okay.
That's the protected bikeway. And I was out with Denise and another staffer going to Spangler's for a bite to eat at lunch, and we were just amazed by the speed of the cars going through there. And so it was we all landed on we got to get that done, and then also try to get people to be realistic, slow down a bit. They can't be in that big of a hurry to get to the next signal.
They don't even pay attention to the lights when you press them.
Well, I could talk you through many confrontations just between traffic trying to turn into Spangler's or into Ocean Shore or heading up to all the car places there. It's very scary.
I'm one of those that when I saw the issue of safety, for me, I guess as a white male, but I don't agree with the ones that came out that it was a lower point on safety. I'm scared to death of it. I'm not good enough of a rider to even fathom going out on the roads. I'll take the rec trail any day, but I just don't have the comfort level and the confidence to be able to go out. What you guys do out on the street, is amazing and frightening for me. I'll say that. And then let me just talk briefly. We'll get off this call pretty quickly. We are anticipating, so the good news, there's a couple of good news, I think, out of this, it appears at least. One, that our revenues have come in better than expected. We pretty much planned for the absolute doomsday scenario with our budget. And I think that was the right thing to do. But as things have evolved, the revenues have come in better than we had budgeted for, but not as good as they were the year before or the year before that. We anticipate coming back probably at mid-year budget, March time, and starting to talk about maybe some reprogramming of certain things, and that may include capital improvements. So as we start to look at that, I can see us coming back and starting to talk to you guys about the potential prioritization of reprogramming bike ped improvements. So I just want to give you a heads up that that's something that we'll most likely be coming back with in either the January or, if nothing else, the March timeframe, at least with that. And usually the mid-year is late March, April is when that really occurs. So we'll figure out where that lands and how that comes. Obviously, the passage of Measure U, or looks like the passage of Measure U. I know the count is slow, but it at this point is pretty definitive that that's passed, and that will obviously help us down the line for also programming and capital improvements and things of that nature too. So that's a 2 thumbs up for that, and hopefully some of that will filter and leak its way down into bike pedestrian improvements as well. That would close out our update on
John,
project. Oh, sure.
Can I interject something?
Or the chair, up to the chair. Say no. Say no.
To the chair, may I?
The floor is yours, Ray.
Okay. So we have a list of recommendations for bicycle and pedestrian projects from CCAG, Countywide Comprehensive Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. And they're preparing that. It's, I don't know, this must be the plan that they've been working on for a while. And so they have 5 projects related to Half Moon Bay. 3 of them are in Half Moon Bay, and then 2 of them are in the unincorporated area, but near Half Moon Bay. And I just wanted to go over that real quick, if that's okay, John. Or do you want to just? I sent you the email. So
here's kind of the problem I'm having with it is that we're really off the agenda, and we try to uphold the best in Brown Act adherence.
True.
With it, I think Sherry.
We'll put it for the next.
I think Sherry sent notice of the upcoming 9th and 10th public forums with that. Mm-hmm. We could certainly send some information on that, Ray. If you've got that, I think we can send that forward. Scott Phillips on our staff has been monitoring and working through that, and I think keeping Ray up to date on it. And we'll certainly share those. And if need be, we can come back either at special meeting or at the regular meeting in January to talk about those and push those forward. I would just recommend we do that.
Excellent. I'll coordinate with Scott then.
Great. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions on project updates? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to the update on the Miramar Bridge closure.
So I put it on here because I didn't want anybody to not be able to ask the question or know what's going on. Frankly, I find out most of my information about that through the Half Moon Bay Review, but which is a statement in and of itself. No, the county's been working on it. The city manager has been very involved, and I know our council members have been engaged with it. So to some extent, I'm happy to defer and allow that. I think if you follow this at all, there's this a bit of a debate about whether the bridge should be moved from its current location right next to the water inland to roughly align with Alameda. Obviously, there are those that love that idea, and there's those that don't love it so much. And you know, at this point, you know, we know the detour is a tough path at times and everything with that deal. We've heard it. We've conveyed that to the county. I think they're trying to work through that. County Public Works, I think, is being as involved and engaged as they can. Don Horsley, obviously, our board supervisor member for this district, has been very involved and engaged in that, and go from there. I saw Michelle have a hand up.
Well, John, you should follow Coastside Buzz as well.
Sorry, I didn't give the plug there.
All right. So it turns out that I went to the Alameda residents meeting on Sunday, and then I followed that up with a coffee clatch with Debbie and Robert Brownstone. And it seems like the San Mateo County Planning Public Works it's a juggernaut. It's not going to stop. So the bridge is going to be rebuilt. And I emailed Jim Porter, who is Public Works for San Mateo County, and he said, we're going to be building the bridge. And I've heard from the Alameda residents, and I don't think it's even viable there. I know that they have a legal easement that goes all the way back to the subdivision in early 1900s. So they actually have a legal ability to do that. But the political fallout is, let's just say there were 20 people there at the end of a street that, somebody had told me that I should show up at. So they were very politically involved. The north and the south end of the Alameda people have finally come together. So I do think that the Medio Bridge will be rebuilt. There's some issues with the Casamira apartments. There's a bit of a lawsuit with riprap and the soil nailing that was planned. And there's, as another layer, Michael Powers and the Army Corps of Engineers basically say that the bridge is going to get taken out again. So here's the thing. And I'm trying to remember who said it best, but it was Mike Ferreira, of course. They're going to build the bridge. Then we can think about retreat. So in one line, I think Mike captured the situation for the bridge. The bridge is going through, they're going through the permitting process. I caught a couple of DPW guys that were doing wetland delineation. So they're definitely going through the process, and it's number one on San Mateo County's DPW list at this point. So
I think that's a very fair assessment of the circumstances, and we're caught in an extremely difficult position because while we, as the city, and I will say this, that Maz and I met with DPW staff probably 2 years ago and said, you at least have to look at that Alameda option to say you've looked at it, evaluated it, and tossed it out as a non-viable option. I don't know that I don't know where they went with that. It's not my job to deal with that, but we did say, there's going to be questions asked, and there's going to be the argument that this bridge is just going to fall apart again. Now, that being said, the bridge that they built was of the exact nature and material that the Pilarcitos Bridge that we helped rebuild was, and also the bridge over Frenchman's at the group camp there. So what we figured out was that was a really bad design. That being close to salt water and using rust as a way to seal the bridge and have it stop at that point was not a good idea. Those bridges work well on in the mountains where there's less moisture, drier climates and things, but it was not a good design. We figured that one out. So and I think they are, I'm not sure, but I hope they're looking at aluminum, I think, at this point, which will have a better lighter and better maintenance and repair side of that deal. But I think the assessment is that they're able to use the foundations for the existing bridge and drop it in. And yes, compounding this is a little lawsuit that's with the Casamira homeowners and dealing with which is not a nail wall project, but it was actually a pretty thoroughfare seawall, but also a stairwell, concrete stair going down to the beach for beach access. But that's, I just wanted to give you a forum, to.
Okay, can I get a little, I just want to maybe paraphrase so that I can make sure that I'm understanding everything that was just said. So we've got the county needs to build a bridge of some sort. We're saying that going inland, are you saying, Michelle, that the residents there have gotten kind of together and are agreed that they absolutely don't want that to happen there? Is that what you were?
Yeah. Correct. 100%. They don't want it there, and the problem is that you're bringing a bunch of strangers in.
Right. Okay. So we're back to
like you
placing the bridge where it currently is.
Yes.
Hopefully we get a better bridge. Maybe it'll last a little longer, but eventually we know this is not a viable place for that bridge.
So it will never be a viable place. So
right. And so eventually when it all falls apart again, we'll be looking at moving inland.
By building the bridge in a place that we shouldn't be building it right now, it will give us 20 years to plan to go inland.
Okay.
And the way that public agencies work is they're locked in, they're funded, so they're just ready to go. And because the political pressure has put them into number one, they're going to make it happen. So you can't stop that bridge from going in. It's going to be way longer than it needs to be, but that's what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll just say from the challenge that we've had from the city perspective is that we obviously have a lot of constituents, and the county has a lot of constituents that regularly use that bridge. And if we get into a prolonged debate about relocating inland right now, we will probably never see that bridge rebuilt, or we won't see it for many, many years to come because of lawsuits and litigation. And so I think County DPW and Don Horsley and the board are looking at this pretty pragmatically to say,
yeah, but they weren't very pragmatic about the fact that we have known that bridge was not going to last. That all these plans should have been going on 3 years ago, and certainly 2 years ago. And it sounded like, oh, the bridge is gone. Well, now we start from scratch.
So when I found the DPW guys, so at the same time they're like doing the detour, I like to cruise around on my bike and just see what's happening. And I see these two vests going down into the gully, and I go, aha, what may be up? And I go down there and I ask him, and I say, so what are you guys doing? And he said, wetland delineation. I said, so, from your point of view, is this bridge project being held up because of the armoring project? Like, they want to do all of it at once, right? I mean, that's what an agency would want to do, is the whole project at once. And he looked up at me and he goes, well, you seem very well informed. And I think that's the problem. I think for the last 3 years, they've been waiting to do this project all the time together, but the Casamira lawsuit has caused that gap. That's my theory anyway. John, you can have a go.
I'm not going to venture into that theory. It's not, but I will say this: County DPW has known that bridge was needed to be replaced, and we were talking to them 3 years ago. So this is not a surprise, and they have been working on it. I will say this: the city was surprised by the speed in which ultimately the county made the decision to deem the bridge closed. And that was I think it would be disingenuous to say that all of us weren't surprised and frustrated by that if that was going to come, it would have been nice to know that a while back. And frankly, I don't know that much has changed out there in the last year, so I'm not sure exactly when and why it was decided at that time. I know they got an expert that said you should close this thing down, but
I may have been part of the problem. There was a point, because I go back and forth and I report back to people. I said, did you know? So there was a Sunday, and this is pre-COVID, and there were at least 60 people on the bridge, 30 going this way, 30 going that way. I mean, it was just completely packed. And I'm with a person who's on a bike in front of me and somebody who's on a one wheel behind me. And what I noticed was the clicking and clacking of the boards that went across the bridge. And they would deviate up to an inch. So as I'm riding along, I'm watching this older lady kind of stumbling along, you know, and I look at the piece of wood go up. I see her foot kind of go, and I see, oh my God, she just made it. Yep. So if she had not timed her footing just right, it would have been a bad scene because there were so many people going quickly along there. I mean, it would have been horrible. So I mentioned something but I wasn't the only one. I was not the only one to mention it. I mean, it was really, but my solution was what we did at the Sweetwood Bridge. If you remember, we took, the state park took plywood and they sheathed the bridge. Right. And that stopped the wood from fluttering, which stopped the vibrations that were causing the problems, you know, and it would have allowed us to get through at least the 2 years of permitting.
Here's the issue. Yeah. You're also adding weight to that bridge that wasn't anticipated and wasn't designed for. And that scared me to death when I went over the street.
And looked at it.
Frankly, because it may have stopped clickety clack, but it also added pretty substantial weight to a bridge that that we weren't convinced could continue to hold the weight and load. And I think that is the bigger issue there is that, you know, the argument could have been for pillar seatos the same way. Why didn't we put plywood over that so the tractor didn't fall in on that? Well, because it was rotting everywhere. And I think
it was bad.
That bridge was the angle, if you look at the angle iron and, you know, the metal, it was just falling apart. And,
well, we had citizens actually propping the bridge up from underneath.
Yeah, and that's scary. So I just wanted to give you a forum to talk about it a little bit tonight. Again, we'll try to keep everybody up to date as information comes, but I think it was summarized very well. It appears that County DPW is moving forward with the project. Their plan is to go ahead and build it next year and get the permits from the, you know, that they need to deal with. And we'll hope that the Coastal Commission, I think our hope is the Coastal Commission will not challenge and allow it to go back in its place to retain that access. But I will tell you this, the interesting piece to the Casa Mira lawsuit, and this is what scares me on all of this, is the Coastal Commission went against the staff recommendation on the Casa Mira seawall project and took about 10 minutes to make the decision to deny it. But interestingly, this is public record, so I'm not sharing anything that isn't out there. They basically said, we don't buy the argument that this is protecting the coastal trail or a major public asset, because if we did that, we'd be armoring the entirety of the coastal area of the state, is basically what they said. So I think that back to the concerns about how, where, and how the Coastal Commission will react and respond to the nail walls and the nail, you know, the stabilization there for this project. You know, we're all a little concerned given what they said with this other project. I know it was a private party project and everything with that, but one of the major pieces of that was to retain the coastal trail along and adjacent to that, which is the same coastal trail that's served by this bridge and Miramar. So, you know, that's I think where some caution and some concern really lies with all of us in terms of how all of this is going to play out.
So I know it's late, but just one little tidbit. So State Parks has been negotiating with county to go behind Casa Mira for at least a year and a half. So that is part of is take it around the apartment buildings. What the Alameda group would like them to do is not do that because it would bring people back into their neighborhood again.
Yeah.
No, so this is managed retreat, and I think that's the managed retreat is really what the California Coastal Commission is doing, and certainly the San Mateo County of the Department of Sustainability is all about managed retreat. So what the Alameda people, are saying, John, is, well, instead of just making it like all the way behind the apartments, within the next 10 years, 20 years, why not just, there's a fair amount of state park land that you could, there's a tree right there, you could bring it in, and the riprap will keep the trail right in front of the Casamira apartments and the big brown. I think the riprap will stay there for 10 years.
And I don't want to get into it too much with that because we are then off the path. But I will say this: the reason why they had to file the lawsuit was twofold. One, because their project was denied. The second piece was they were demanding that the riprap be removed because it was an emergency project. Coastal Commission was saying you have to remove the riprap.
Correct.
It's left unprotected. I think we've probably killed this, and I'm happy to talk to anybody offline.
Sure.
And
I just wanted the rest of the committee to understand how complicated it was.
John, I just want to be clear that I understand. Who are they suing?
Who are they suing? Casamira is suing the Coastal Commission.
The Coastal Commission. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Good info. Moving on to number 6, the update on recent grant applications.
I think you've kind of got a sense from our report on the other things that we've been very active with our grants. We've been actually very successful with our grant applications. We will continue to scour the earth for grant applications. And Ray, is there anything particular that you wanted to just add to that?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of covered that earlier, but just as a recap, the past month and a half, we applied for alternate transportation program through Caltrans, Measure A bike and pet program, and highway safety improvement program. So those 3 applications were pretty extensive. Some of them were hundreds of pages. We put them together and turned them in the last day of their deadlines. So
the highway, the one I'm excited about, but again, we're not anticipating success, but the highway safety is also taking a look at the intersection of Kelly and Highway 1. And while I'm also excited about Highway 1 North, that one obviously is one that we would love to get going with. So again, thank you for whoever was out there supporting that and helping us with that. And we'll see. But our feeling was get it out there. If you don't succeed, try again. And so we'll continue to work on that and try to deal with that intersection and get funding for it. Okay, we good?
All right, moving along. So item 4 on the agenda, future agenda items. So this goes back to the committee. Thoughts for projects or initiatives that you'd like to hear in the future?
I think it's been a long evening. You can always feed to us your ideas and thoughts. I think we have a lot of follow-up from this meeting to schedule for the next time around. And please feel free to feed to any of us, Sherry, me. Moz will be back soon. He's taking some family time, so we wish him well and the family well. But he'll be back in the saddle again soon. And Ray obviously is just holding down the fort with these projects. So if you've got thoughts, ideas, feel free to talk to us. We'll be happy to Zoom anybody and talk about anything you've got. And thank you for your willingness to serve. It means a lot to the community. It means a lot to us. And it's a very enjoyable evening with you. But it's been a pretty long evening, I know. So
then just to comply with Brown, I can go through the agenda. Moving on to committee reports and comments. Any matter that members would like to bring up? All right, then hearing none, we will move to adjournment. And I just wanted to call out that Sherry did send out the calendar for next year's BPAC meetings. So I think we're scheduled for a meeting second week of January, if I recall from reading it very quickly. Or actually, I may have it up.
The 7th, I believe.
7th, yeah. January 7th, 2021.
Okay. If you'll notice on that, just that we pushed 2 of the meetings that were around the July 4th and the Labor Day. We pushed them a week later, so they're different than what your normal schedule would be. So hopefully that'll work. We can always come back and revisit those, but we felt that might as well just make that adjustment now. If you can plan for it, put it on your calendars, and better than screaming at us about messing up your Independence Day week or your Labor Day week with that. So hopefully that works.
All right. Well, thank you. And I will echo John. Thank you, everyone, for your time and energy and thoughtful comments. It's always appreciated. And then just since we won't see each other again until next year, unless we run into each other on the street, heading into the holiday season, enjoy, stay safe, spend time with family, even though we have been spending time with family. Enjoy it even more.
2021 is coming and it's got to be better.
There you go. There you go.
Thanks, Mario. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Good evening.
Bye, everybody.
Stay safe. Good night.
Good night, all.